Have you ever spoken to someone for the first time and felt like your entire life just changed in that single moment? This is not just a love story. It's the story of two strangers whose first words to each other became the beginning of everything. Aiden never believed in destiny, and Lila never trusted love. But the day they finally spoke, something happened that neither of them could forget. This one conversation would bring them closer and tear them apart, until one day, when they realized the truth, that sometimes the first word is the start of forever. This is their story. Aiden was walking down the busy street on a rainy evening. He had no umbrella and was getting wet, but he didn't care much. His mind was lost in work problems and the noise of the city. Suddenly, the rain started falling harder, and people rushed to find shelter. Aiden ran and stopped at a small cafe. The warm lights inside looked inviting, so he went in. At the same time, Lila entered the same cafe from the other side. She was carrying a small bag of books, and her hair was slightly wet from the rain. She looked around for a seat, but the cafe was full. Aiden was sitting alone at a table near the window. Without thinking much, Lila walked toward him and softly asked, "Is this seat taken?" Aiden looked up and saw her for the first time. For a moment, he forgot about everything: the rain, the work stress, the noise. She looked simple yet so graceful, with a warm smile that made him feel calm. "No, please sit," he replied. They didn't talk much at first. Aiden looked outside the window, while Lila opened her book. But inside, something felt different. It was just a few minutes, but Aiden kept stealing small glances at her, wondering why a stranger suddenly felt so important. That was the first time they shared the same space. No long talks, no big moments, just a quiet, simple meeting on a rainy day. But neither of them knew this small moment would change their life forever. The rain outside showed no sign of stopping. Lila kept reading her book, and Aiden sipped his coffee quietly. The silence between them was not awkward. It was calm, almost peaceful. But then something small happened that started everything. Lila's phone rang, and as she quickly picked it up, her bookmark slipped from the book and fell near Aiden's feet. He noticed it and bent down to pick it up. It was a small, colorful bookmark with a quote: "Every story begins with a word." Aiden smiled as he handed it back to her. "This is yours," he said softly. Lila looked up, a little surprised, and smiled back. "Thank you." He hesitated for a second but then asked, "You like reading?" "Yes," she replied, holding her book tightly. "It makes me feel like I'm in another world." Aiden nodded. "I wish I had that habit. My life is mostly work and meetings." He chuckled softly. Lila laughed a little, and that laugh did something to Aiden. It was light, warm, and so real. For a few seconds, they both forgot the rain and the crowded cafe. They talked for a while, about books, about the rain, and about how life feels too fast sometimes. It wasn't a deep conversation, but it was enough to make them feel something they couldn't explain. For Aiden, it felt like fresh air after years of breathing smoke. For Lila, it felt safe, like she had known him before. When the rain finally slowed down, they both realized they had spent almost an hour talking. Lila stood up to leave and smiled. "Nice talking to you." Aiden wanted to stop her, to ask her name, but the words didn't come out. He just smiled and said, "Same here." She walked away, and he watched her until she disappeared into the street. Aiden didn't even know her name, but he knew this wasn't the end. Aiden could not stop thinking about that short conversation. He kept remembering her smile, her laugh, and the way her eyes looked when she talked about books. He didn't even know her name, yet she felt like someone he had been waiting for all his life. The next day, Aiden went to the same cafe again. He told himself he just wanted coffee, but deep inside, he hoped to see her. Hours passed, but she never came. On the other side, Lila also thought about him. She rarely spoke to strangers, but something about Aiden felt different. She didn't even ask for his name either, and now she wished she had. A few days later, fate played its role. Aiden was running late for work and decided to take the bus instead of driving. As he entered the bus, his eyes froze. There she was, sitting near the window with her earphones on, lost in music. For a moment he couldn't believe it. He walked slowly and took the seat behind her. His heart was beating fast. Should he say hello? Or would that feel strange? He hesitated for a minute, but before he could decide, Lila turned and saw him. Her eyes widened in surprise, and then she smiled. "You again?" she said with a little laugh. Aiden smiled back nervously. "Yeah, seems like the rain wasn't the last time." They both laughed, and this time, the conversation came naturally. They talked about music, books, and little things about their day. Aiden learned that she loved writing stories, and Lila learned that he worked in marketing, but secretly loved photography. By the time the bus stopped, they didn't want the ride to end. Before leaving, Aiden finally asked, "Can I know your name this time?" She smiled softly and said, "Lila." He repeated it in his mind as she walked away. Lila. A name that felt like poetry. After that bus ride, Aiden and Lila started meeting more often. Sometimes by chance, sometimes by plan. At first, it was small talks in the cafe or quick chats on the bus. But soon, they started spending hours together. One evening, they sat on a park bench under the soft glow of streetlights. It was quiet, except for the sound of leaves moving with the wind. Aiden looked at Lila and said, "You know, I never really talk like this with anyone. Not even my friends." Lila smiled. "Me neither. I usually keep things to myself." There was a short silence before Aiden asked, "Why?" She took a deep breath. "Because people don't really listen. And sometimes when you share too much, they leave." Her voice was calm, but Aiden felt the weight of her words. He didn't want her to feel sad, so he said softly, "I'm not leaving." Lila looked at him, and for a moment, her eyes said more than her words. She believed him. At least she wanted to. Then she asked about him. "What about you? Why do you look so serious all the time?" Aiden laughed a little. Work mostly. I've been so focused on building a life that I forgot to live it. He looked at her and added, until now. That line made Lila's heart beat faster, but she stayed quiet, pretending to look at the stars. They talked for hours that night. Lila told him about her dream of becoming a writer, and Aiden told her about his love for photography. They shared stories of childhood, favorite memories, and even their fears. Every word made them closer, like pieces of a puzzle coming together. When they finally said goodbye, Lila walked home with a strange smile on her face. And Aiden, he couldn't sleep that night, because he knew something for sure now. This wasn't just friendship anymore. Days turned into weeks, and Aiden and Lila became a part of each other's daily life. They shared coffee, long walks, and endless conversations. But somewhere in these little moments, something deeper started growing. For Aiden, it happened one afternoon at the cafe. Lila was talking about her favorite book, her eyes shining with excitement. A small strand of hair fell across her face, and without thinking, Aiden reached out and tucked it behind her ear. The touch lasted only a second, but it left his heart racing. He quickly pulled his hand back, feeling shy. Lila smiled softly but didn't say anything. Inside, her heart was beating fast too. Another day, they were walking in the park when Lila slipped on a wet path. Before she could fall, Aiden caught her by the hand and held her close. For a few seconds, they just stood there, staring at each other. Neither of them spoke, but their eyes said everything. Later that night, Lila sat on her bed, thinking about that moment. Why did his touch feel so different? Why did she miss him even when they had just met a few hours ago? She tried to convince herself it was nothing, but deep down, she knew the truth. She was falling for him. Aiden felt the same. Every time his phone buzzed, he hoped it was her. Every time she laughed, he felt like the world was perfect. He had been alone for so long, but now being with Lila felt like home. Neither of them said the words yet, but love was already there, silent, soft, and growing stronger with every passing day. Just when everything felt perfect, life decided to test them. One evening, Aiden was waiting for Lila at their favorite cafe. He had planned to tell her something special, that he was falling in love with her. He even bought her favorite flowers. But while he waited, his phone buzzed with an email that changed everything. A big job offer from another city. It was his dream job, something he had worked hard for. But it also meant leaving everything behind, including Lila. He felt happy and broken at the same time. "What do I do?" he whispered to himself. When Lila finally arrived, Aiden didn't mention the job. He couldn't ruin the moment. But as the days passed, he became distant, lost in thoughts. Lila noticed. One night she asked him, "Aiden, is something wrong? You don't seem like yourself." He hesitated, then finally told her, "I got a job offer. In another city." Lila froze. Her heart sank. "You're leaving?" "I don't know yet," he said quietly. "It's a big opportunity, Lila." She tried to smile, but her voice cracked. Of course you should take it. But deep inside, it hurt more than she could handle. After that night, things changed. Their calls became shorter, meetings less frequent. They both loved each other, but neither said it out loud. And now, it felt like the universe was pulling them apart. One evening, after another silent coffee together, Lila walked away without looking back. Aiden watched her go, feeling like he had just lost the most important person in his life. Days passed and Aiden and Lila stopped meeting. Their messages became fewer until there were none at all. Aiden tried to focus on his job decision, but every time he looked at the offer letter, he thought of Lila's smile. Nothing felt right without her. One night, he sat alone in his apartment, looking at his phone. He opened their old chat, reading the small jokes and sweet talks they once shared. That was when it hit him. What's the point of a big job if he loses the person who makes life meaningful? At the same time, Lila sat in her room with tears in her eyes. She held the bookmark Aiden once picked up for her. She whispered to herself, "Why does it hurt so much? I should be happy for him, but I'm not." Deep down she knew the truth, she loved him. The next morning, Aiden made his decision. He didn't want to let her go. He grabbed his coat and ran out into the city, hoping he wasn't too late. He knew where to find her. The little cafe where it all began. And there she was sitting by the window, reading her book just like the first day. His heart raced as he walked toward her. When she saw him, her eyes widened in shock. "Aiden? What are you doing here?" He took a deep breath. "I couldn't leave, Lila. I can't take the job. Because no dream is bigger than you." Tears filled her eyes. "You stayed for me?" "Yes," he said, holding her hand gently. "Because from the moment we spoke for the first time, my life changed. And I don't want to live without you." Lila smiled through her tears and whispered, "I don't want to live without you either." And in that little cafe, with the rain falling softly outside, just like the first day, they finally confessed what their hearts had known all along.